Meet Kyle Waters, a cyber unicorn, a semi-professional blacksmith, and a man who believes that if you heat your employees too much with phishing tests, they won't get stronger, they will shatter.
If we're going to go along with the blacksmith motif, if you heat something up too much, yes, it will burn. If you cook your employees too much with phishing simulations, they're going to burn. I put it out there that there are no stupid users. There are some stupid questions, absolute. So if you're only doing the basic, don't expect more than the basic. They're not born with the knowledge of cybersecurity. So they'll have the proficiency to use technology, not the knowledge. My niece had no idea what metadata was. I went, I bet I can get into your phone without using your face. I just put her phone in front of his. Went, I bet it's unlocked, isn't it? If it's digital, it's accessible. So maybe having a password journal that's not kept beside the computer. It's a bit mum and dad level security. Hack that. It's not accessible. You have to physically be able to break in and get it and be able to use it.
Kyle Waters, for anyone who doesn't know you, can you please introduce yourself?
Absolutely. So I'm the aforementioned Kyle Waters. I'm a cybersecurity consultant with Cyber Unicorns. I am also an international and local public speaker and a blacksmith as well, which not so relevant to cyber, but a lot of fun.
Yeah. So let's play on that, the blacksmith perspective. So Kyle, I have to start here because it's just, I think, so cool, to be honest. You're a semi-professional blacksmith. You spend your weekends hitting hot metal with a hammer. In your words, if you heat metal too much, it melts.
Burns, yeah.
If you cool it too fast, it shatters. So when you look at how companies treat their employees, bombarding them with phishing tests, scaring them with policies, are we forgetting to temper the steel before we start swinging the hammer, if you like?
If we're going to go along with the blacksmith motif on this one, if you heat something up too much, yes, it will burn. It won't bend. It won't do what you need it to in order to get it the right shape. And if you cool it, like if you quench or cool it incorrectly, yeah, you can create stress and fractures and all like. And this same analogy does permeate through the cyber industry. If you cook your employees too much with phishing simulations and all this sort of thing, they're going to burn out. They're just going to ignore everything and click everything and just be like, oh, well, I can go back and do the training, and then I'm back to being cyber compliant again, or just, not care at all. But if you don't do the phishing test, or you don't heat and try to shape the company, then yeah, you're going to get those cracks, you're going to get those fractures, and eventually things are just going to break on their own. So yeah.
So I'll play on that. Let's stay on that one for a minute. So if I'm a business that's implementing cybersecurity training, awareness training, and yes, we've been told by our IT company that they can also do phishing and all these exercises, what approach do you think works? Because we've seen, I don't know if you heard, the city of Yarra did this exercise in Christmas a couple of years ago, I think now, and the staff were given allegedly, gift vouchers, fake ones, and a lot of them actually clicked it and they failed the test. So the argument there was, that obviously they should have known that their boss is never going to give them a free gift voucher, but, learning lesson. What do you see out there as the best approach to find that perfect balance of giving things like email tests or various other cyber awareness testing to staff that actually works and they learn from?
But there's the best way to look at cyber awareness training is in, well, 2 or 3 parts is the way I look at it. So you've got your 2 main parts. You've got your phishing test and you've got your training. With phishing tests, I generally recommend 3 to 6 month regular ones, or every 3 month regular ones. They're the ones that people will get used to. They'll be sort of expecting it if they cotton onto the pattern. You make sure that you put a few ad hoc ones for like specific departments. You don't do everyone every time. I liked Voucher example that you gave. That's a classic one. That's one of the bread and butters of the cyber awareness training and phishing campaigns. But don't always do the same thing. Don't always do a credential harvest. Sometimes do it just as an access control type test. If you keep doing the same things, people will expect the same things and they'll become numb to it. So yes, have your regular routines and everything, and they're the ones people expect. It makes them feel a bit like, I'm onto it. I know what's going on there. But also throw in the ones that catch them off balance, the ones that make them go, oh, hang on, I don't know everything at the same time. Like, I need to know a bit more. But if you take that away and then you focus on the training side, you've got to look at what's engaging for the customers. Engaging for the employees, because something that might work for one group won't work for another. In one of my previous roles, the training that's delivered is done in a sitcom style. It's maybe 5-minute clips, actors playing parts, and it's absolutely hilarious. And that works for quite a lot of people, especially support people, which I've found. But it might not work for, say, executives. Like, they might see it as a bit childish, a bit juvenile, a bit But it doesn't mean that they don't pick up stuff as well. You just got to find the right audience to deliver the right training. So maybe things for higher up people in this case. So in this case, for executives who find the sitcom style a bit juvenile, do structured training. Have a person come and have a chat to them, or set up a questionnaire style type thing, like something that appeals to the way they normally do business or they normally work. Engagement isn't always about making the person happy and laugh and all that sort of thing, but it is about how to get the information across in a way that makes them feel that they're not just learning it, but contributing to it in the future and wanting to pass that information on. So those are the two main ways. The third is obviously group training. So getting people into a room and going, hey, what about this scenario? What do people think about this? Or, there's 4 people in each corner of the room. Who do you think is in the most danger of, being cyber breached? And making one of them an absolute red herring. It's a really good way to do it, because people are able to feel like they're not just learning the information, but the people around them are contributing. They're giving their own perspective, or they're giving their perspective to those people. Like, it's definitely an exciting area, which is why when I start talking about it, I always get a bit, manic and excited, because it's a great topic. Like, it's something that I think is underutilized or underappreciated in our industry, but it is absolutely essential, because the human element of cyber it makes up majority of what we do. Like we're not just defending people. We also need to help them to help make our job that tiny bit easier. That's just, making sure that they don't click on something that, you would turn around and be like, why did you do that? That's so obviously a phishing thing, but they might not see it. So if they're not clicking on that stuff, then our job is that much easier.
Yeah, I agree. You're teaching them in a way that they enjoy. It's not drone. If it means getting a laugh, it's one thing, as you said. It's relatable to the employee or employer. Like, if they're a C grade person or a CEO, then yeah, as you said, they probably want to be short, sharp, to the point, lessons learned, and move on.
Data-driven stuff, yeah.
The staff having, that's it. And I love that you say that if you do the same thing and it becomes repetitive, then you're right. That's hackers rely on that, because they know that all you're doing is a credential test, and they're going to try something different, and it's going to work because it's different. So absolutely, keeping the ball moving in different directions means it's unpredictable, and you're more hopefully prepared for it, or the staff are more prepared for
Exactly.
it.
Yep.
Now, I guess based on that, talk about learning. I always say the quality of life is determined by the quality of your communication. You've been, I believe maybe in a past life, you've been a manager for theatre, you've worked in retail, you've been in the trenches of customer service.
There's also a bartender.
When the server room is on, yeah, but that's right. Listening to everyone's problems. Why would you leave that for cyber? When the server room is on fire and the CEO is screaming, how much of your job is actually technical engineering and how much of it is stage management?
Well, that's actually a really good question. It comes down. I've come across this similar sort of question before, usually during an interview. But it's a case of it's a city room's on fire. I mean, if it's literal fire, get the extinguisher, get the fire is, and yeah, the CEO can scream all he wants. He doesn't put out the flames. But although that, I suppose that helps for, like a digital attack and stuff as well. The CEO can scream. It doesn't change the nature of the fire. What you need to do is you need to get your end sorted first. You need to first figure out what the issue is and how to best manage it. That's once you work out what's going on, that's when you can start allocating resources and working out where everyone needs to be. So it's the stage management of its side is obviously making sure everyone is where they're supposed to be and following their steps. The technical side is making sure that you understand the situation enough to be able to allocate those resources. And then beyond that, or let's call it the bartender side of it, all right, is being able to answer those high-level queries that are coming through. So the CEO or board or whoever's coming down going, I want information, what's happening? And you never give them the specifics that, will get them bogged down or take it off in a different tangent. You always make sure you give them the general rundown first, advise them that the situation is being looked into, and give them a rough time frame of what the next update will be. Because if you don't give them some sort of an update of a time frame that you're trying to work towards, they're going to keep bugging you. They're going to keep emailing. They're going to keep doing their thing in the background, and they're going to add more and more pressure, and they're going to have more people calling you. They're going to be calling you more often. So you got to be able to sort of set them go, right, here's a rough time frame. This isn't concrete. If I say I'll let you know in 5 minutes, might not be 5 minutes, might be 6, might even be 10, but I will get back to you the moment there's an update. And setting that expectation. So being in the middle of a situation is all about knowing who you are and and what your role is in everything. So if you can do that, then everything else is secondary. Everything else will come into place because you know what you need to do. You know what you've got, like what your process is.
I love that. Being able to communicate is, I guess, can be misunderstood by a lot of people. And as you said, like yourself, I've been in many scenarios where we've been called into a situation or we've found or detected something and we have to work on it. As long as you communicate that to the right people, then you're not giving them a leg to stand on to keep coming back to you and whatever else. And at the same time, the client will appreciate the fact that you've kept them in the loop, and it just keeps everything calm and it makes a big difference. I agree. There's also
my thing is I when I'm doing a report, I generally do it in the DMAIC style, which is a data-driven style sort of report. There'll be specific details, but there will also be some generalized details in there, but enough to be able to make sure that when I pass this report on, if I have to pass it on to the dev team or if I have to pass it on to the board, it's the same information either way. And you're less likely to get pushback, or you're less likely to have things not improve because you've got the data, you've got the process showing the whole way. And if you do that either at the end of a situation or even as a database cleanup project, having that sort of report, it also gives the people in power or the people who need to make certain changes, it gives them exactly what's happened and what needs to go forward. And I think that's one of the most important things about tying up these sorts of incidents is that if you don't put a complete report together, then things will happen again or things will fall apart.
Absolutely. Now, as you know, the name of our podcast is Dumb Ways to Get Hacked. And what I've realized is you have a real interesting take on this. You don't buy into the stupid user narrative, as some people would like to call it. So if they click on a link because I'm tired, because my kid's screaming in my ear, or I just didn't see it, am I dumb? Or did the system fail me? So I want to know where you draw the line between personal responsibilities and bad design.
Oh, yeah, bad design is definitely an interesting one. The approach is there's a different way of looking at it in this case. You're absolutely really right. There's so many factors that make us overlook the obvious things that show, say, like, a bad voucher in an email or something like that. But there's also the knowledge. If you haven't been given the knowledge to spot these warnings or hazards, then you're not going to pick them up 100% of the time. If you don't know, you're always going to fall into that same hole. So I've put it out there that there are no stupid users. There are some stupid questions, absolutely. I mean, anyone who's worked in a support role, they'll tell you of the eye strain of just rolling your eyes at some of the dumb questions that you get. But if we're able to educate the person on that call, if we're able to tell them how to spot the bad vouchers, then they're going to be able to, they're not going to call us as often, or they're going to tell people, in the desk next to them, hey, don't click on that, or your computer monitor's not working. Well, why don't you wiggle this cord, see if it falls out or if it turns back on? I put it down to the level of education that you put out there, or the level of education that's put out there, is as much as we should expect for people to be able to come back and help us. So if you're only doing the basic, don't expect more than the basic from people. But and this is for parents, grandparents, kids, everyone. I'm a big champion for cybersecurity in education. Like, I am absolutely trying to get that into the Victorian education system, as many of my other, professional colleagues in other states and in Victoria are also trying to do this. Because kids, well, let's face it, kids they're not born with the knowledge of cybersecurity. They're more adapted. They may be more adaptable and able to pick up technology that bit faster, because young brains are able to make more connections than adults. But they also need to be taught the safety side of it as well. Like, if we teach kids to be more safe, then by the time they're adults, they are going to be more safe than the generations that preceded them. But if you've got parents out there who are wanting to keep their kids safe, well, they need to be taught this stuff too. So we need to get information to them. And this is a self-reinforcing ecosystem, is that we teach kids, we teach adults, we teach grandparents. And if everyone is getting this information, then they're getting that extra bit of security. They're able to help develop and their own sort of, like I said, their self-contained ecosystem. Like, they are able to, build this security culture within their own families. And I'd probably say that the approach to cyber, or the amount that we put out there with training, is possibly the main issue.
Yeah, I agree. I think and I've said this before in podcasts and in things I've written, today's street smart is cyber smart, because that's where the danger lies. I mean, technically speaking, regardless of if you watch the news, I don't. We are still living, compared to years ago, we're still living in a much safer environment. However, when it comes to online, and we can access online by so many technologies these days, whether it be your mobile phone, fiber connection, satellite connection with Starlink. So that's where we get our information from. That's how most people communicate with other people. And it's not narrowed down to a workplace. What, we don't use internet when we leave work? Of course we do. Social media, another big topic for another podcast, but it impacts everyone. You're so correct. It impacts your grandmother, your grandfather. It impacts the 4-year-old. It impacts the school, primary school, high school. And yes, it needs to be educated, I think, as from get-go, to make everyone aware in the street smart way. I agree. I think that's definitely the way to go.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'd probably say that it's, you hit them, the nail on the head in your summary, but it doesn't just fit to the online stuff. It also fits to the physical side of the security as well. I mean, I often use an example of at my nephew's birthday, my niece was getting confused by all these cyber things, and I'm like, well, didn't you learn this stuff in school? And she straight up said no. And I said, well, I was talking about mobile phones and how they're not always 100% safe, and and she's like, it's safe. I lock my phone. I've got a password. I've got my phone is locked to my face. So unless I give someone my password or they take my face, and they're not going to get into my phone. I bet I can get into your phone without using your face. And I love my niece, but when she gets confident, when she gets smartest person in the room sort of looks, does a sort of puff up, like, oh yeah, go on, see what you can do. So I grabbed her. She gave me her phone, walked over to my nephew. I went, you've been taking photos tonight, yeah? He was like, yeah. I went, did you take any of your sister? He was like, oh yeah, have a look. Show me a photo, and I just put her phone in front of his, unlocked my niece's phone, and I held it back in front of her, without looking, and I went, I bet it's unlocked, isn't it? And she grabbed her phone and didn't talk to me pouted and didn't talk to me for about an hour. But yeah, it was, people don't realize that, there are ways around these security measures that people do put in place. So yeah, it's more security is always better, and that kids aren't always the cyber natives that people think they are.
Yes, that's that definitely takes us on to the next question. I think is that today, as you said, niece, nephew, they're born in a generation where they're literally using their iPads before they can walk. But the assumption is oh look, my kid's been unlocking my phone since I've been 3 and realized what my password was. Ha ha ha. And the term, I think, is digital native, as you said. But when it really comes down to it and you ask something simple like what is metadata or how does a cookie work on your browser, a lot of them still seem clueless. So is the idea of digital native actually a myth, you reckon?
I suppose it depends on the perspective that you're looking at. If you're looking at it from a security point of view, I don't think so. Unless you're actively teaching the kids security alongside, there's I'd say the term digital native probably only applies to the user side. It's not actually fluency side, if that makes sense. So they're able to use technology 100%. They're able to make those connections. It's almost a mechanical thing. Kids are able to learn the process, learn how to do steps A through D, and put together the B and C. But they don't know the rest of it, everything that comes after, E through Z, basically, which includes your metadata, it includes cookies, it includes everything else. if we're not teaching them that stuff as well, they're not going to know it. So yeah, they'll have the proficiency to use technology, but not the knowledge of how to do it safely in every case. Some kids pick it up. Some kids, they'll take those a few extra steps that other kids won't. For example, a friend of mine's child she is very, very cyber aware, to the point where she will stand in the middle of a shopping center. She'll turn around and say, that person's doing the wrong thing. They're not or that person's using the Wi-Fi. I don't think they're using a VPN or something, to secure themselves. And it blows me away. There are those kids that are that clever, but it's because their parents have taken the time to educate them in how to be safe with the technology, not just how to use it. Yeah, my niece and nephew also, it's that same party. They also had no idea what metadata was. And I literally showed them with photos they'd been taking that night. Had geo-tagging times. It had automatically sorted them into the albums based on, the people in the photo. And it was, it was blown away. Like they realized that the technology did that. Like it could sort those files. They weren't sure how it did it, or if it, it just took a photo and went, right, this makes sense. This is this person, It's important that we teach them, because if they don't know this stuff, then they're gonna make these massive mistakes. They're going to fall in, they're going to fall in these traps, and people are basically going to be able to take advantage of their vulnerability. They're going to be able to go, right, I've got all this data. I know where this person is. And they don't just have to give that information. People don't have to willingly give that information away, because they're already doing it. If they're not scrubbing their photos before putting them up online, people are like, oh, so this person lives over in this suburb. Oh, I know that street. I can drive past there and say hello, as it were. Or in the digital sense, I can, find out when they're leaving their house and rob them blind. There's so many different aspects to it that, we need to teach them about this stuff. And if we're not teaching them at home, we need to teach it in school.
I think that's a good one, in that we say we need to teach them. And I think it's comes down to parents as well. And this is not one of those master classes of you're doing parenting wrong. This is a master class of, as a parent, one of the things I've had a few of my guests now say is the term sharenting, over-sharenting, which is where we all do it. And I'm not saying I'm not guilty of this, by the way, right? But hopefully I think my phones were dumb at the time when they were that young. But anyway, you could take we're proud. We take a photo of our child, nephew, niece, grandchild, whatever it is, and we share it on our Facebook post because, we're proud. But again, the risk of that is what's not understood, in the terms that person who may be a friend of a friend in Facebook, who's now got access to that photo, who can get that information. And it's an education, going back to exactly what you originally said, which was education is full circle. It's not in a workplace by itself. It's the mum, the dad, the child, the niece, the nephew, grandparents, so on and so forth, uncles, aunties. I feel like I'm talking in a Spanish show where everyone has to be introduced by name and with their reference. And that means if you're safe at home, you're safe in the workplace, and vice versa. And it means that, from my experience, if a person feels safe at home, they'll give more of a damn when it comes to their workplace, because they understand what those risks are.
Exactly. And that's if you think about it, people who work from home, or people who can work from home, I should say, they have their laptop that they take to and from the office. They know to keep that safe. They know that this has to, you've got these restrictions. You can't visit these sites on it. You can't do this with it, or at least some of them should. So, but people are more aware of their work gear. So if people are more aware of, security at home, or cybersecurity at home, that's also going to increase their cyber awareness with their work stuff. It's like, well, hang on, if I'm not supposed to do this at home, why would I be able to do it at work? I can't. I'm not supposed to. And it will be a cascading effect. It will be one of those things where people will be more aware. No, sorry, not more aware. They'll be more thoughtful of of how to proceed with their security, because they'll be able to transition the security mindset of home to work and vice versa more easily. So that way, if things come up at work, or if they get that email from the cyber no team, as I've heard a lot of cybersecurity teams called, saying, look, you've done this wrong, you need to stop doing this immediately, or hey, you failed the phishing test, this is why. It will come up as less of a shock, because they'll have already been starting to practice this security at home, this stuff at home, and they'll be like, right, yep, I clicked on that link, I forgot to check this part, right. And I do think that in a gradual way, like, despite, if you take away all the hype and stuff you see on, from the news and all the scare stuff that gets sensationalized, parents do pick this sort of thing up. They go, well, this breach of all the school email accounts and so forth that happened recently, parents are starting to ask more questions about, well, how do we now secure these things? Like, these accounts are our children's email accounts. How do we secure them? And they are freaking out. But a lot of the solutions are simple. Yes, there's certain data that's out there that can't be retrieved, but you can make the accounts safer by simply changing the password. And at least got parents asking certain questions and realizing that school is a digital place. School is something that's a vulnerability in that sense. Some of them are misplacing the anger towards the schools themselves, or even the education, like the Department of Education. Yeah, these things are there. Like, and yes, the breach did happen on that side, but if you're being safe with those accounts, if your kids are being safe with those accounts, if you're teaching them to be safe with those accounts, then this breach is fairly easily mitigated.
For those who might be wondering, this is regarding the recent compromise where Victorian Education Department data was stolen, and I believe the email, first name, last name, and encrypted passwords were stolen as a part of that. But more to the point, exactly what you've mentioned there, Kyle, is we want to simply just go anywhere that account or any major account you use, whether it be your email primary account, if you've got banking or anything like that, or sites stream for games, change your password. Because at the end of the day, what we know is passwords get used a lot, and the same password gets used a lot. What's your thoughts on that, Kyle? Like, do you think besides like changing the password, what should they do to protect that information? Is there a better way to change password? Is there a better technology to use? And what lessons learned from this?
There's so many lessons to be learned from this. And that's the thing. Like you said, like the categories of data that was stolen, there's not a huge number of those, but there are so many aspects to each part. So the passwords, we'll focus on that part because, well, that was the question. But I mean, yeah, don't use the same password for everything. Maybe if you've got a lot of things that require passwords, which, let's face it, we all do nowadays. Yeah, don't reuse the same password, but maybe use a password in the same structure or a similar structure. So something that has letters, numbers, characters, all that sort of thing. Having multi-factor authentication is helpful as well. A password manager will add some level of ability to keep all those passwords in a centralized place and help secure them. But they are a digital asset. One thing I learned, or one thing that I've always said ever since I did my own TAFE course in cyber, was if it's digital, it's accessible. and there's no like we can have all the security in the world, but if it's digital, it's accessible. So maybe having a password journal that's not kept beside the computer. It's a bit I was going to say mum and dad level security or grandparent security, but it is actually one of the things. I mean, if I was to hold up this bit of hack that, it's not accessible. You have to physically be able to break in and get it and be able to use it. But if you keep a physical log of your passwords or a certain grouping of passwords, so important stuff, have it locked up in a secure place away from the source that it's used. Regularly changing your passwords, or even if you don't regularly change your password, make it to the absolute maximum character count that your password is allowed, and don't reuse it. Have your banking password your banking password. Have your email password just your email password. Because the less that this password's used means the less access. You might have the same email account across 20 different profiles, but if each one has its own different password, then you're not giving them 20 different accounts by reusing the same password. They'll only get access to that one, and then that's only one password you need to change. It's not 20 that you need to go, right, I need to go and change it to this now. It's one of those things that's absolutely maddening. So if you want to do less work, one password for one account, reuse your email. I don't care, like that's completely up to you, but different passwords.
I have seen an amazing idea by someone where they said their grandparent loved botanical gardening. So he bought them a book on that and showed them how to highlight certain words, and they used that as their password, but they knew what the meaning was behind that with a couple of like a scribbled lines next to it. But even if I had physically somehow got that book, I'd have no idea what is it, a flower that they like? Is it a plant? So, get creative. So you worked at Mimecast. At that stage, you're at the front lines of email security, right? Now, you must have seen some absolute horror stories. Now, I don't want you to give away any names, of course. Privacy is something we, take very seriously.
Really?
Yeah?
We're big on privacy and cybersecurity?
Yeah. Look, we're big on cybersecurity, like the laser. Let's go with that. We're big on cybersecurity. What's the most audacious human mistake you've seen where, that kind of one where you have to mute the phone for a minute, take a deep breath, tell yourself, that's okay, let's just fix this, while you were secretly dying on the inside?
I'd probably say I had one client who they were like their setup was absolutely brilliant, but over the years they'd had so many people working or managing their email security, so they had multiple policies, multiple definitions, and multiple exceptions for pretty much every scenario. So policy is what think of it as the rule. Definition is what triggers those rules, and the exception is what those ones will allow through. So that way you still get your email from JB Hi-Fi or or the shoe store you bought from that one time. But this company had so many that they'd call you up and they absolutely blasted me. Like they blasted the company. They're like, oh, you guys are terrible, you're shocking, and I'm looking at their policy. It took me a week to settle this one ticket, and it wasn't because it was a particularly difficult breach, a particularly difficult scenario. It wasn't actually a breach. I found that the reason why it had gone through is because there were so many different things triggering, and then so many different exceptions nullifying all the other triggers, that they pretty much had opened the door by trying to over secure They were trying to, it's like, rather than going and looking for something, oh, why didn't this trigger? Should we fix up the definitions a bit or fix up the exceptions to it? Oh, no, we'll just create a new policy, new set of definitions, new set of exceptions. What do we do about it? I went, to be honest, trash it all, start from scratch. If you don't do this, you're going to keep doing the same mistake, and you're basically going to nullify any security that you have ever had. So I'd say that's the one that really got me.
I'll try to simplify it in my understanding. So you've got a gate to walk into your building, and we've got a gatekeeper. Let's call him Bob.
Okay, so there's only one gate. No other doors. But Bob's been given, he's been given 2 lists. One list of people who can't come in, one list of people who can. And they're each on their own clipboard. And then someone else comes along with another set of clipboards. Right, here's another bunch of people who can't come in. Here's a bunch of people who can. And eventually, Bob's got tables and tables of clipboards of exceptions and things. And eventually, people who are coming through that might be blocked on one list, they're allowed on another. That's the way I look at it. So it's Bob's still at the gate, but Bob's frazzled because of the amount of clipboards that he has to try to go through to let each one. So the moment that the name appears on one, he looks for it appearing somewhere else on the other, and lets it through if he finds it on the second one.
Simplified perfectly.
No worries.
Thank you.
That's what I do. Taking a technical term and putting it down to the most simplest analogy possible. I love it. It's my jam.
Now, speaking of jam, or speaking of your jam, I loved a talk that you gave, which was how to train your Jedi. Now, I love this because I'm a Star Wars nerd. I'm putting that out there. I don't care what anyone says. But the key concept there is in Star Wars is that there's always a master and a Padawan, which is, if you like, the apprentice, keeping it simple as possible. In the industry of cyber, there's senior pros, and obviously there's lots of apprentices or lots of people studying to come in. But it seems that the jobs that are going out there, even though they're saying junior, you need to have 5 years experience in this, 3 years experience in this, and 2 years giving no hope. So it's terrifying sometimes for these people to come in to work under someone who's a seasoned pro. Sometimes these people can be gatekeepers, but in your case, you went through that yourself and you had an amazing master, as you like to put it out there. How do we, I guess, get the mindset right in the industry for the master to stop the Padawans from turning to the dark side, or worse, just quitting because they don't feel like they've been mentored correctly?
Well, that's a great question. It's on us as like professionals in the industry to help the next lot coming through. That's the simplest way to put it. If you think that you're the badass cyber professional, like everything, or at least know everything within your field, like that's brilliant. So we'll go to the definition of the whole cyber Jedi thing. Funnily enough, it was a talk that I did with my own mentor, with my own Jedi master, Craig Ford, absolute champion bloke, brilliant author, and if he's watching this, a very handsome man. But it's kind of hard to put into words, but if we're passing down knowledge, we're increasing the knowledge of the next generation. We're able to pass on not just the stuff they learnt in class, we're passing on the nuances, like how to deal with this situation, how to deal with this scenario. It's reinforcing by historical legacy. So in the Star Wars industry, every Jedi is the legacy of all the Jedis that had come before them in that teaching cycle. So, best example, Ahsoka Tano was trained by Anakin Skywalker, who later became Darth Vader. He was trained by Obi-Wan, then Qui-Gon Jinn, but you're getting all the knowledge of those particular Jedi down and distilled into this one person. And then when they pass that on, they're getting all your training maybe third hand, fourth hand, fifth hand, whatever, but they're still getting your training. They're still getting the lessons that were developed and distilled from everyone that came before them. And it's how we move forward. Like it's how we get that additional experience without actually having to live it. Whenever I see the experience in those job things, I keep thinking, well, hang on, is this lived experience or is this trained experience? Thank you.